Welcome back to ACER Explained. So this is a series where I'm going through the ACER practice test, the new booklet that has come out. So please make sure you have your booklet in front of you so you can follow along. In this video, I'm going through Unit 2, so that's questions 4 to 7. As always, I'll be identifying prereq knowledge and reasoning skills as well as bootcamp resources. So jumping straight into Unit 2, we're given a table of amino acids. And we're also given the order of amino acids in some nonopeptides, which I've put up here. And we're also given some information about different kinds of enzymes. We're told about trypsin and chymotrypsin as well. And so let's focus on question 4. So question 4 asks us which of these following nonopeptides would be cleaved by trypsin. So trypsin, now the thing that you have to do here, because this is quite a long stimulus, you have to scan through it. Note where you can find different bits of information. So at the beginning, we see the nonopeptides and some general information on polypeptides. Then in the middle, we have a table of amino acids and the structures of the R groups. And we have below the table a diagram of proline and tryptophan. And then we have some information about chymotrypsin and trypsin. So that's what goes through my head when I'm going through the stimulus in the first kind of viewing of it. Then I go to question 4, and it's asking me about trypsin, and therefore I can remember, I remember reading about trypsin in that final paragraph. Now I'm going to actually go in and read it. So the information that you get from that final paragraph is that trypsin basically will cleave the bonds on the carboxyl side. So cleave at carboxyl side of the amino acids lysine and arginine. And these are shown as LYS and ARG, looking at our table, because in our answer options, in the nonopeptides, the notation that they use is the shorthand notation. So I go back to the table and identify the shorthand notation for lysine and arginine. And it says this is only the case if they're not immediately followed by proline. Okay? And so we can see, we also need to look at nonopeptides. So I go back to this piece of information in the stimulus, and then I can take a look at whether or not they have lysines and arginines. Okay? So we have, looking from left to right, cysteine, tyrosine, phenylalanine, glutamine. Then we have asparagine, can't say that one, cysteine, and we have proline here. Then we have arginine. So that rings bells. Okay, arginine. However, it's not followed by a proline. It's actually preceded by a proline. So, looking at that proline, you might think, I can eliminate argipressin, but arginine is not followed by the proline, it's preceded by the proline. So this can still be cleaved by our enzyme trypsin. Then looking at the next one, we don't have any lysines or arginines. Looking at the third one, we also don't have any lysines or arginines. And then looking at our final one, we have an arginine here. Okay, so this can also be cleaved. So looking at our answer options, we have argipressin, but not the others. That's wrong because we know cephalotocin can also be cleaved. Argipressin and cephalotocin, but not oxytocin or octopressin. That is looking like the correct option. And if I was confident, I would circle it and move on for the sake of time. But let's go through the other options as well. We have oxytocin, which is incorrect. We already know this. And then all 4, that's also incorrect because these 2 don't have lysines or arginines. So the answer option is B. For this question, I did not need any prerequisite knowledge. I didn't need to know anything about amino acids or polypeptides or any of these nonopeptides at all. It was all simply pattern recognition and being able to identify the important and relevant information in order to answer the question. And so the bootcamp resources you can use to refine this are the reasoning skills course, as well as the acceleration class on tables if you're having difficulty interpreting tables. Question 5 is asking about the specific nonopeptide argipressin, and it's asking what would happen if chymotrypsin cleaves argipressin and which amino acids are isolated. So remember looking at the last paragraph for our information on chymotrypsin and trypsin. The important information on chymotrypsin is that it's going to cleave the peptide bonds. It's going to cleave on the carboxyl side. And this is our carboxyl group here. And the amino acids that it's going to target on the carboxyl side are tyrosine. So I'll write the shorthand. Tyrosine, tryptophan, and phenylalanine. So that's PHE. Okay, so now we can go back to argipressin and see where chymotrypsin is going to cleave it. So we have cysteine, then we have tryptophan here, tyrosine here. So we know that it's going to cut there. Then we continue. We have phenylalanine right there, so it's going to also cleave here. Then we continue, and we see that these three don't come up again. So basically, you're going to be left with a chunk that's this chunk, and this chunk. And so the only amino acid that's isolated is phenylalanine. So the correct answer here is A. Same thing here, you didn't need any prerequisite knowledge, perhaps about what a carboxyl group is. So just that COOH, knowing that that's the carboxyl group is necessary, and that's kind of your basic organic chemistry. And then reasoning skills that were used here are pattern recognition and identifying the relevant information, and then being able to apply that to answer the question. So the resources that you can use for this are the reasoning skills course as well as the acceleration class on tables. And if you do want a refresher on your organic chemistry, you can also take a look at the resource on organic chemistry, the Content in Action series. So question 6 is very similar to the previous question. You're basically saying, okay, well, trypsin, we know it's going to cleave lysine and arginine, if not followed by a proline. Right? So these two are the main ones. And it's going to be on the carboxyl side. And we're just basically looking at a different nonopeptide here. So what would happen if trypsin cleaved this nonopeptide? So going through, the first thing we come across is arginine. So it's going to cleave there. It's not followed by a proline, so it can cleave. Then following along, we have, that's it. Nothing else. We don't have any other lysines or arginines coming up. So we just have chunk 1 and chunk 2. So it's basically cutting it, right? That's what cleave means. And so what are the products? Let's look at our answer options. A single amino acid, a dipeptide, and a hexapeptide. That's incorrect. And you can kind of infer from, because we're given the fact that these are nonopeptides, and you can see that they have 9 amino acids, you can kind of infer that a dipeptide is going to be 2 amino acids, and hexa is going to be 6. And then here we have 2 amino acids again, and then 5, 3, 6, and then we have tetra, which would be 4, and penta, which would be 5. And so this one is incorrect because it's saying that there's going to be 3 chunks when we know there's only 2 from what we've kind of looked at here. Then we have 2 dipeptides and a pentapeptide, so that's wrong as well because we only have 2 chunks. Then we have a tripeptide and a hexapeptide. So looking here, we have 1, 2, 3, 4. So this is going to be tetra. And then we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and this is going to be penta. And so this is incorrect. And the correct option is D. So if you already looked at the answer options and kind of figured out that, oh, it's going to ask us for the number, I would have just gone back, counted tetra and penta, and then been able to circle this, rather than kind of doing the process of elimination in this case, just to save a bit of time. Again, no prerequisite knowledge really required here, except maybe the fact that it would be handy to know like the prefixes, tetra, penta, hexa, etc. The reasoning skills that were used here again are the same: pattern recognition, identifying relevant information, and so the bootcamp resources are also the same that I've been mentioning throughout this video. Alright, so this final question is asking us something, again, quite similar. We're basically saying that argipressin needs to be broken down into chunks that are no longer than 3 amino acids long. And so that's kind of the tripeptide means that there's going to be 3 amino acids in this peptide. And it's saying that trypsin, chymotrypsin, and one other enzyme need to be used. So we're going to start off by seeing what happens when it's cleaved by trypsin. So trypsin we know is going to cleave at lysine and arginine. So on the carboxyl side, so we have arginine here, and we don't have lysine. So then we can move on to chymotrypsin. Chymotrypsin is going to cleave at tyrosine, phenylalanine, and also tryptophan. And we don't have any more of those there. Okay, so right now we have a dipeptide, a single amino acid, another single amino acid that's attached to this group, and then we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 here. So this bit needs to be broken down, and that's when our third enzyme is going to come in. So it's asking us, where does this third enzyme need to be able to cleave so that we're left with chunks that are no greater than 3. So it's either going to have to cleave here so that we have 2 and 3, or it's going to have to cleave here so we have 3 and 2. There's no really other option. So it's either going to be on the carboxyl side of ASN or on the carboxyl side of cysteine. And the answer options that we have here are cysteine. What you could have also done, instead of dividing this into 2, but it could take longer, is just go through the process of elimination. So you can take a look and you'd be able to kind of identify, let me get my eraser. You'd be able to identify that, okay, well, if it cleaves at proline, then I'm left with a chunk of 4. So that's incorrect. Cysteine is correct. Then if you wanted to keep going, glutamine, it would be here. So you'd be left with a chunk of 4. And phenylalanine is not even in here. And phenylalanine is also broken up by an enzyme already here. So that would be redundant. So then your answer would be B. Again, you didn't really need to know any prerequisite knowledge. This one's kind of a fun puzzle kind of solving one. You can, once you've got the hang of what the question is asking you, it's pretty quick for you to be able to go, okay, well, that's where things are going to be cut, and that's what I need from my third enzyme. So the reasoning skills used here are the same that I've been mentioning, and so are the bootcamp resources as well. That brings us to the end of Unit 2. I hope one of your big takeaways from this was that, GAMSAT Section 3 is very problem-solving vibes. So there's not necessarily a whole heap of prerequisite knowledge that you need to answer these questions. You just need to know how to identify those key bits of information. Awesome. So please like, share, and subscribe for more GAMSAT help. We really appreciate your feedback. We have our Instagram here at Thank Flip GAMSAT, and our podcast, Thank Flip GAMSAT, Nurses Doing GAMSAT, if you want to hear more from us. All right. I'll see you in the next one.